Okay. So essentially, dive is a composition that pries on picking out weak spots within a team or separated teammates. So let's say team A here would be the team running dive, and team B is, let's say, a double shield comp, which you're going to see a lot now. The squares are representing the tanks, the triangles are going to represent DPS, and the circles are going to represent supports. So for the double shield comp, let's say we have a Zen Bap, a Ashe or a Widow over here. You could have like a Soldier, McCree, or something right here, and then you have a Sigma, a Risa, etc. So basically, your two tanks, ideally either Ball Monkey or Diva Monkey, are going to look for and scout out a target. So let's say your Ball routes around on a flank, and he sees that the two supports, which again are Baptiste, Zenyatta, are a little separated from their team, right? So Baptiste is going to want to be playing high ground back from his team. Zenyatta is going to want to stay a little back as well, take less of the front line damage. So typically one of the tanks would scout them out, and your DPS, which could be a bunch of different things, but for fundamentals, let's say it's Sombra. So let's say our Sombra is going to get in position to hit this dive. So ideally, let's say we have a monkey ball here. The monkey ball is going to get in a position where they are set up for the dive, and the Sombra is going to follow, probably invisible. So at this point, the Sombra wants to pick a target on the hack. Now, these two squishies are their healers, and let's say they're separated from their team. So the odds of them getting peel from their McCree, or peel from any other teammates for that matter, is relatively low, unless the dive goes wrong. So Sombra is going to have to pick a target here, and let's say this is the BAP and this one's the Zen. Sombra could hack the Zen, and it could obviously take away the freedom of his Harmony Orb and his Discord Orb and all of that stuff. But the highest priority target here for the Sombra hack would be the Baptiste, because that denies him his regeneration field, and it's going to deny him immortality. So Sombra is going to initiate the hack on this Baptiste, and as the hack is initiating, hopefully the tanks and maybe even the other DPS are in position for this dive. So she's going to go ahead and hack the Baptiste and start bursting him. And when this happens, the tanks are also going to fall on the Baptiste or the Zenyatta. So ideally, with this much burst damage coming from your Monkey Ball and your Sombra, and maybe even your other DPS, these two are going to fall. Okay, so let's say these get taken out of the equation, or even if just one of them, let's say just their Baptiste goes away. So let's get rid of that here. So let's just say their Baptiste is now dead. Alright, you retreat on the Zenyatta because maybe the McCree goes and peels for him. Alright, so now you're at a 5v6, and they only have Zenyatta heals. So at this point, you can take the fight in a few different ways. You can go ahead and look for one more pick on a soloed out DPS here. So you can go and try to pick off this DPS and dive him. Or you can start trying to take the fight. So when you start trying to take the fight, basically you're playing on this man down idea. So it's going to be a 5v6, they're only going to have Zenyatta heals, which is next to nothing, and hopefully you can overpower them for that, or you can fish for a second pick, secure the fight that way. Supports on a dive are going to look like something that can have impact from range, since your team's going to be engaging out of the range that you're not going to be at. You don't want your supports to push with your dive unless you have a good Reddit Lucio. Even then, that's not ideal. So your supports are going to want to look something like an Ana, that great handwriting, or a Zenyatta, who can have impact from far away. Or you can have a Brig and a Zenyatta, so that way she can armor pack or heal from a longer range, and so can Zen. And the idea there is your Brig's going to stay on your Zen and protect each other. So yeah, that's basically how an ideal dive would work, is you would pick off one or two targets, and then you would control the fight from there because you have the pick advantage. Of course, this doesn't always work. You get counter-comped heavily. So yeah, just with that principle in mind, we can go ahead and get started into the rest. The tank lineup you're usually going to see for dive is going to be a Ball, a Winston, or a Diva. What makes these tanks work great as dive tanks is they're all going to have a form of movement, and they're all going to have a form of sustain. So with Ball, you're going to have, obviously, the ability to roll around and do as you please, high speeds, easy get out, and you're going to have adapted shields to keep you alive. With Diva, you're going to have boosters and defense matrix. And with Monkey, you're going to have leap and bubble. Okay, so what this is here is I've divided all the characters based on how they fit in team compositions. So I'm going to go down the list. We're in a meta right now where there are basically 3 main types of comps. Of course, you can vary and they're not locked at all, but this is generally what you're going to see. So for the dive, you're going to see things like Genji, Tracer, Sombra, Hammond, all of this. But I think it's important to note how I've divided these characters. So the characters and their respective categories are what works with best, and I feel like these first 3 categories are pretty self-explanatory for the type of team compositions they are, but we have some niche and dynamic picks down here. So what niche means is they typically aren't picked unless it's a direct counter pick, or there's a certain scenario where you're going to want these characters. So an example would be Pharah's a niche pick because you're probably only going to want a good Pharah if they don't have good hit scan to deal with you, or if they're running a team where Pharah is going to completely counter, like a Junkrat and a Torb. So that's what niche is. Characters that aren't going to see a lot of playtime unless they bring something to the table that, is worth picking. Dynamic characters are characters that can fit into multiple different team styles depending on how you want to play them. So Widow would be good in a double shield. She would also be good in a dive. She'd be good at double shield because double shield likes to play long angles on big sight lines. So a sniper can find a lot of value here. And she would also be good on dive because she can support a fight that is happening far away with relative ease. And dive fights tend to end chaotically. So in the chaos, you can find nice little picks. Brig is going to be dynamic because she can work with a Brawl team comp if you sub out the Lucio, maybe even the Moira, maybe. And she can also work with dive because she can support from long range and protect your other support. Ana's going to be the same thing, kind of. She works well in double shield, and she's also going to work well in dive. Echo's going to work well in dive, and she's also going to work well in double shield spam comps. Or even Brawl to an extent. And McCree can fit into kind of any of these. McCree's pretty good in double shield because same thing as before, long sight lines, can provide peel to vulnerable teammates. Can be good in dive because he can peel for his other support and still help at long range fights. And he can be good in Brawl because, well, McCree's fall off range is kind of short. Maybe you want to be up close, get the fan hammer kills, just a nice little DPS output. And Zenyatta's going to be dynamic because he can also fit into dive by supporting with Discord and Harmony orbs on any divers and the targets that they're calling. Work well on double shield because he offers a lot of shield break and damage off at a distance because he has no fall off range. So that's how I've organized this list. And I think something important to note is how these comps interact with each other. So it's kind of like a game of rock, paper, scissors. But to simplify it, Brawl will usually beat dive. Dive will usually beat double shield, and double shield will usually beat Brawl. The reasoning for this is dive is naturally bad into Brawl because Brawl relies on the team being grouped up together. Because you're going to want to stay behind that Rhine shield, you're going to want to be able to be in range of that Zarya bubble, you're going to want to be able to follow up on Mei ice walls. Lucio, obviously, you need to stay by him to get healed and stuff. So this team comp is going to play very close together, which makes finding singled out targets and an opening for a fight very difficult for dive. Right? You're likely going to try to dive in and pick off a support here, I would assume, and you're going to get absolutely shit on because you have a Reaper pumping into your face as Monkey or Ball, or you have a Mei trying to wall off your escape and slowing you down. So Brawl will naturally beat dive because of that. Dive will beat double shield, because double shield likes to take long sight lines, as I said. So when you bring the fight to them, it can be chaotic, and usually, the supports like to play a little off. Sometimes the sniper will play off and take high ground. And dive is really good at taking, controlling, and using high ground. So that's why that works. And double shield will counter brawl because, as I've stated, double shield likes to play for long engagements. They like to take poke fights because they have a lot of damage that goes over range. So you may be trying to walk at them with Rhine and Reaper and all this. You're going to want to walk at them naturally. But if they have a lot of damage coming at you while you're trying to take them over, it's going to be poorly done because you need to get up close in order for your Reaper, your Mei, your Reinhardt to actually start doing something. So generally, unless you're just completely better than the other team, you don't want to play dive into a brawl. You don't want to play brawl into a double shield, etc. So that's basically how the interactions are going to work here. There are going to be a few rare exceptions, and these team comps are not always going to be static because you will see players change up because, it's Overwatch and nothing is going to stay to one category. So here's something that happened in a Pro League game on Watchpoint Gibraltar with Dallas Fuel versus the Paris Eternal. And Watchpoint Gibraltar is a very dive-centered map because of the long sight lines, stuff like that. You're going to see dive being played a lot here. So what you're going to see right here is Eternal is up here holding blue box on high ground, and right now, 3 characters we're going to be taking a look at is their Genji, their Winston, and their D.Va. So this clip right here, I think, highlights the potential that you have when you run a dive comp. So right here, they're going to catch the fuel mid-rotation, and for about what seems like maybe 1 or 2 seconds, their supports they're the last to rotate here. They try to rotate off this high ground down here into cart. And when they do, their 2 supports are left. And this just shows how quickly dive can eliminate a target with some focus fire. And even when they're all grouped up like this, just catching them a little bit away without an EPO available can be really devastating. So you can see here, we got the D.Va and the Monkey, and I think the Genji set up right here. And you're going to see the fuel, they're going to go down this bridge to rotate, and immediately the Monkey's going to call it. And you can see here, everyone's using their movement abilities to rotate quicker, and their 2 supports are kind of left behind. So at this point, their Ana's getting to about half HP, their Brig's still pretty good, minus her armor missing. So just watch how quickly they shut down this rotate and ultimately win this fight because they're able to secure the dive and the kills on these 2 supports. So the Monkey's going to leap in. We're going to put this in 0.25. The Monkey's going to leap in, do his damage. If you've seen right there, the Genji just dashed through both of them, immediately doing 75 damage, I think, is the dash number. So immediately that's 75 bursts, plus you have the Monkey, and you're going to have their D.Va shooting, not D.Va. You're going to have their D.Va shooting into the supports as well. So just watch how this rotation turns into something that loses them the fight. Just like that, both their supports gone. No heals at all. They're going to lose. Their Ana even have nano. So that was how it was slowed down. So watch how quickly this happens. And dive is kind of fast-paced, so this isn't surprising, and of course this is a professional level of play. But it really does show you how effective this can be. So look how quickly this happens in real time. Boom, team fight lost, just like that. So I just wanted to show that. I thought that was a really nice and overall perfect dive and a higher level of play. Okay, something I just wanted to show real quick is how to properly stage a dive. So I think the best representation for this could be Nubani first point. A lot of the times you're going to have the defending team holding up here, and the attacking team's usually going to want to push through this choke as well. So sometimes you'll see a Zenyatta or a Baptiste playing over here, supporting their team from a safe spot so they can't get picked off by any snipers or random frontline fire. And sometimes they'll have a sniper over here as well. So it could be any combination of these. You know, it can just only be a sniper, it could be both these, or it could be all three. So ideally, you'll send your Monkey Diva, Monkey Ball, whatever it is, you're going to send them down main while the rest of your team fights and contests this up here. So from here, you can take this high ground and flush out any sniper that could lie here. You know, there's even a possibility of getting an opening pick for your team here as well. So the tanks are usually going to want to push this way. The DPS, you can't see it in this image here, but the side stepway that's back there, they can take that flank route and also come around and hit these guys, or they can harass the fight up here from the back line. So basically this entire first point, the reason why dive is so good here is because, as I said earlier, dive is very good at controlling, taking, and utilizing the high ground. So this entire blue section is high ground, and you're going to have high ground here. And as you can see, this entire point that you can capture in is completely exposed to these angles. You can shoot from here, you can shoot from here, you can shoot from here, and you can shoot from back here to there. So nowhere on this point is safe from high ground. If you control high ground, you pretty much control how this fight's going to go here. That's why a lot of attacking teams are going to want to start up here. So by initiating this fight, by getting a pick, forcing them to drop high ground, forcing the guys up here to drop high ground, you're immediately putting your team at an advantage there. So just to recover what I was saying, tanks are going to want to usually go down main, or they could take high ground early. They're going to want to flush out or kill anyone up here. And if they get peeled for, they're going to want to return main, wait for their cooldowns again, and try again. The DPS can either go with the tanks down main as well and come up the high ground through there, or any other mobility they may have. Or they can flank the long way around and hit them from the behind, and then they have the opportunity of harassing these guys with the tanks diving. They can poke from the back line over here. I know this is like a mess right now. Hold on. Oh, anyways, we're just going to have to deal with that. But they get a lot of opportunities for attack here, and that's what we're going for. Alrighty. So that's basically how you're going to look to stage a dive. I know it's just for one point, but the concept's going to remain the same. It's just a lot easier to explain here.